Welcome back to Deep Dive Daily. It is great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Today, we are taking a trip to, well, the very top of the food chain. We are looking at a position that has arguably the most prestigious address in the entire country, Rashtrapati Bhavan.
That's right.
We are talking about the President of India.
It is a fascinating subject because on the surface, the president is, everywhere. They're the first citizen.
Right.
They are the face of the republic. They live in this, 340-room palace that, it rivals anything the British monarchy has. But in the rough and tumble of daily politics, they often seem absent.
Absent, or at least quiet.
Very quiet.
Exactly. And that is the hook for today. I think for most of us, when we picture the president, we picture the ceremonial stuff.
Yeah.
Cutting ribbons, accepting credentials from ambassadors, maybe, waving from a cavalcade on Republic Day. It feels very, well, decorative.
And yet, if you pick up the Constitution of India, which is our roadmap for today, and you turn to Article 53, it says something quite shocking.
It really does.
It says the executive power of the union is vested in the president. All of it.
Vested in the president. I mean, that sounds like they run the whole show. But then you turn on the news, and it's the prime minister who's making all the calls. So we have this central tension. The Constitution calls the president the head of the state. But critics, and there are many, often call the office a rubber stamp.
It's the classic debate. Authority versus power. Is the president a symbol?
Right.
Is they a rubber stamp? Or, and this is the interesting one, are they a guardian?
That is our mission today. We are going to unpack the legal framework, the specific articles, and we're talking specifically Articles 52 to 78 and the historical cases that define this role. We want to see if the president has any, break glass in case of emergency powers that we don't usually talk about.
And to do that, we have to go deep into Part V of the Constitution. We need to look at the incredibly complex math behind the election, the specific wording of the oath, and the toolkit of powers, from vetoes to pardons, that the president actually holds.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Legally speaking, who is this person?
Well, if you look at Article 52, it's a very, very short sentence. It just says, there shall be a president of India.
That's it.
That's it. But Article 53 is where the weight is. It says the executive power represents the unity, the integrity, and the solidarity of the nation. The president is the embodiment of the Indian state.
So they are the state in human form, a symbol of the nation.
Exactly.
But how do you get that job? Because I know for a fact I have never cast a vote for a president. I vote for my MP, I vote for my MLA, but I've never sung president on a ballot paper.
And you never will. This is where we get to Article 54. The president is elected via an indirect election.
Okay, so why? I mean, if this person represents all of us, why don't all of us get to choose? It seems a bit undemocratic.
That's a great question. And the Constituent Assembly, the folks who wrote the Constitution back in the late 40s, had a very, very heated debate about this exact point.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Some members actually wanted a direct election. They argued it was more democratic, just like you said. But Dr. Ambedkar and others, they argued that would be a huge mistake.
What was the counter-argument? What was their reasoning?
There were two main things. First, we chose a parliamentary system.
Right.
That means the real political power, the day-to-day administration, is with the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers who answer to Parliament. Now, if you had a directly elected president, imagine the ego clash.
Oh, wow.
The president could turn around and say, hey, I was elected by 900 million people. You were just elected by one constituency in one city. Why should I listen to you?
It creates a rival power center.
A dual power center, exactly. We would destabilize the entire government. You'd have two captains trying to steer the ship in different directions.
That makes a lot of sense. And the second reason?
The second reason was purely practical. A direct election in a country the size of India, even back then, is incredibly expensive and incredibly time-consuming.
The logistics alone would be a nightmare.
A total nightmare. And doing all that for a role that is largely, though, as we'll see, not entirely nominal, was just seen as a waste of time and resources.
Okay, so instead of the people voting directly, we have an Electoral College. Who is in this exclusive club?
It is a very specific VIP list. Article 54 defines it very clearly. It consists of, 1, the elected members of both houses of parliament, so the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha.
Elected MPs, got it.
2, the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states, so the MLAs.
Okay.
And 3, the elected members from the union territories of Delhi and Puducherry.
I noticed you emphasized the word elected 3 times there. That feels important.
It's absolutely crucial. Let's take the Rajya Sabha, for instance. The president nominates 12 people from the arts, sciences, literature, social service.
The experts, right.
Those nominated members do not get to vote in the presidential election.
And why the exclusion? What's the logic there?
It's about a conflict of interest. The president appointed them. If they then turned around and voted for the president who appointed them, it would look like the president was stacking the deck with his own loyalists to get reelected.
Yeah, self-perpetuating system. That makes sense. What about the states? You said legislative assembly, so MLAs vote. But what about the states that have two houses, the legislative councils?
Nope. MLZs, members of legislative councils, do not vote, even if they themselves are elected. It is strictly elected MPs and elected MLAs.
Okay, so we have this pool of thousands of lawmakers. But here's where the math gave me a headache when I was reading the notes for this. It's not one person, one vote, is it?
No, not at all. If it were one person, one vote, the numbers just wouldn't work. The MPs would be totally outnumbered by the MLAs because there are thousands of MLAs across India and only, about 770 MPs.
So the states would just run the show every time?
Every single time. So Article 55 introduces this very clever system based on two core principles: uniformity and parity.
Okay, break that down for us. Uniformity and parity. Let's start with uniformity.
Uniformity is about bringing a standard across the states. The Constitution wants an MLA's vote to represent the population they serve. So, an MLA from a massive state like Uttar Pradesh represents way more people than an MLA from a tiny state like Sikkim.
So the UP MLA's vote should, in theory, be worth more.
Exactly. It has to carry more weight. And they use a formula for this. The value of an MLA's vote is the total population of the state divided by the total number of elected MLAs in that state.
Okay, population per lawmaker?
Precisely. And then you divide that result by 1,000.
Why 1,000? Just to make the number smaller.
Just to keep the numbers manageable. Otherwise, you'd be dealing with these huge, unwieldy figures. It just simplifies the calculation.
So the heavier the population of the state, the heavier the vote of its MLAs.
Correct. But here is a fascinating detail that most people, even political junkies, miss. When we say population, we aren't talking about the number of people living there today.
We aren't. Then what are we talking about?
No. Under the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2001, the population for this calculation is frozen in time. We use the data from the 1971 census.
1971? Hold on, that was over 50 years ago. India looks completely different now. Why on earth are we using data from the disco era?
It's a very deliberate policy decision, and it's all related to family planning.
Family planning? How?
Well, over the last few decades, the southern states, think Kerala, Tamil Nadu, did a fantastic job implementing population control measures. Their population growth slowed down dramatically.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the northern states, the so-called Hindi belt, they kept growing at a much faster rate.
So if we use today's population numbers,
the northern states would have absolutely massive voting power in this election, and the southern states would essentially be punished politically for doing what was considered the right thing socially.
they'd lose their voice.
Completely. So to ensure the South didn't lose its political clout, they froze the population count at 1971 levels. And this freeze is still in place. It's supposed to last until the first census after the year 2026 is published.
That is a wild piece of constitutional trivia.
Right.
We are electing a president in the 2020s based on the demographic reality of the 1970s.
We are.
Okay, so that covers uniformity for the MLAs. What about the MPs? That's the parity part.
That's the parity part. The Constitution wants the collective voice of all the states combined to be equal to the collective voice of the Union Parliament.
The scales have to be balanced.
Perfectly balanced. So to find the value of one MP's vote, you take the total value of all the MLA votes in the entire country, add them all up.
Okay, that big number.
And you divide that number by the total number of elected MPs in both houses.
So the total voting power of the states on one side is exactly equal to the total voting power of Parliament on the other?
That is the design. It's a beautiful piece of federal engineering. It prevents the center from dominating the states, and it also prevents the states from dominating the center.
Now, let's talk about the ballot paper itself, because this isn't a simple tick-the-box situation. It's something called the Single Transferable Vote, or STV. Sounds complicated.
It is, a little bit, but the idea is sound. It's a system of proportional representation. When an MP or an MLA goes into the voting booth, they don't just pick one winner. They rank the candidate.
So preference 1, preference 2, preference 3.
Exactly, like ranking your favorite pizza toppings.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And to win, a candidate doesn't just need the most votes. That's a first-past-the-post system. Here, they need a quota.
A quota? What's that?
The quota is calculated by taking the total number of valid votes cast, dividing it by 2, and then adding 1. Essentially, you need 50% plus 1 vote. You have to secure an absolute majority.
So what happens if there are 3 candidates and nobody gets to 50% in the first round of counting?
Great question. That's where the transferable part comes in. The candidate with the least number of first preference votes is eliminated. They're out of the race,
Okay.
but their votes aren't just thrown away. We look at all of their ballot papers, see who those voters picked as their second preference, and we transfer those votes to the remaining candidates.
So it's like an instant runoff election. You just keep eliminating the person at the bottom and transferring their votes until somebody finally crosses that 50% finish line.
That's exactly what it is. This whole system ensures that the eventual winner, the president, isn't just the choice of a narrow group or a single party. They have to command a broad consensus across different parties in different regions to win.
It is an incredibly robust system. I'm impressed. But, elections are messy. What if something goes wrong? What if there's a dispute, a claim of cheating?
All doubts and disputes regarding the presidential election are decided by one body and one body only, the Supreme Court of India.
And their decision is final.
It is absolutely final. But there is a very important safety clause built in. If the Supreme Court declares the election void, say, they find out there was some malpractice.
Right.
Any acts the president performed in their official capacity before that judgment are not invalidated. They remain valid.
So you can't go back and undo all the laws they signed just because they got fired later.
Exactly. It protects the stability of the country. You can't have a sudden legal vacuum where all the laws passed for months are suddenly null and void.
Okay, so we've elected our president through this incredibly complex but fair system. Before they get the keys to the palace, though, they have to qualify. Let's talk about Article 58.
Right, the checklist.
It's the usual stuffed citizen of India, 35 years old, but there is this one phrase that always trips people up. Must not hold any office of profit.
This is a really key concept in Indian constitutional law. An office of profit basically means a position under the government, either central or state, that yields some kind of financial gain or allows you to wield executive power.
And the idea is what? You don't want the president to be beholden to the government.
Precisely. You don't want a situation where the president is on the government's payroll for some other job because that could compromise their independence.
But there are exceptions to this, right?
Yes, very important ones. A sitting president, the vice president, the governor of any state, or a minister, either at the union or state level, is not considered to hold an office of profit for this purpose.
So a serving cabinet minister can run for president without resigning from their post first.
They can. But if they win, the moment they enter the president's office, they have to vacate their minister's seat. You can't be both.
And there's also a kind of entry barrier, isn't there? A security deposit.
Yes, 15,000 rupees.
Yeah.
It actually used to be just 2,500, but back in 1997, they raised it.
Why?
To discourage non-serious candidates. You used to have dozens of people filing nominations just to get their name in the paper. You also now need 50 electors, so MPs or MLAs, to propose your name, and another 50 to second it. It's a much higher bar now.
Now, the oath, Article 60. I feel like oaths in politics are usually just, formalities, people mumble the words. But you mentioned in the pre-show that this one is different.
It is very, very different. If you look at the oath for, say, a minister or an MP, they swear to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution.
Okay.
But the president swears to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law.
Preserve, protect, and defend. That sounds so much more active. It's not passive allegiance.
It implies a guardianship. It suggests that if the constitutional machinery is going off the rails, the president isn't just a passenger. They have a sworn duty to grab the wheel.
That's a powerful phrase.
And this exact wording has been used by past presidents to justify intervening when they felt the government of the day was violating the spirit of the Constitution.
But can they actually grab the wheel? Because if they start annoying a powerful prime minister, can't the PM just, fire them?
Absolutely not. The president has incredibly high job security. This brings us to Article 61, impeachment. It is the only way to remove a president from office.
And what are the grounds for impeachment?
Just one phrase. Violation of the Constitution.
That's it. That sounds pretty vague.
It's completely undefined in the Constitution. So, in effect, Parliament gets to decide what it means on a case-by-case basis. But the process itself is designed to be nearly impossible.
Okay, walk us through it. How hard is it?
Well, It can start in either house of parliament. But first, just to get the ball rolling, you need 1/4 of the total members of that house to sign the notice of charges.
1/4. That's a lot of people just to start the conversation.
It is. Then you have to give the president 14 days' notice. Then that house has to debate it and pass the resolution by a 2/3 majority of the total membership of the House.
Wait, total membership? Not just 2/3 of the people who show up to vote that day?
Total membership. That is a massive, massive hurdle. Most governments struggle just to get a simple majority on a good day, let alone 2/3 of the entire House, including the opposition.
And that's just step one. That doesn't even remove them.
That's just the charges being preferred. It's like an indictment. Then it goes to the other house. The second house acts like a court.
They investigate.
They investigate the charges. And the president has the right to appear and defend himself, either in person or through a lawyer.
And then?
Then the second house also has to vote. And they also have to pass it by a 2/3 majority of their total membership. Only then, at that moment, is the president removed from office.
Has anyone ever come close to being impeached?
Never. Not once in Indian history.
Yeah.
No president has ever even faced a formal impeachment motion. It is a nuclear option that has never been launched.
And there's another interesting quirk here, isn't there, about who gets to vote in the impeachment?
Yes, it's different from the election. Remember those nominated MPs who couldn't vote to elect the president?
Someone's appointed by the president, yeah.
They can vote in the impeachment process.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the MLAs from the states, the ones who had a huge say in electing the president, they have no role at all in the impeachment.
That is a weird quirk.
Mhm.
The states help hire the president, but only the center can fire them.
It reflects the federal structure. The president is elected by a federal college to represent the states, but a violation of the Constitution is seen as a national transgression, a matter to be settled by the national parliament alone.
Okay, let's open up the toolkit. We're in section 3 of our outline now. The powers and functions of the president. We know the executive power is vast. Every single government order says, in the name of the president.
Every single one.
They appoint the prime minister, the governors, the attorney general, the comptroller, and auditor general. The list goes on.
They are also the supreme commander of the defense forces. They have the power to declare war and conclude peace, though always subject to parliamentary approval.
But I think the most interesting powers, the ones that cause the most drama, are the legislative ones.
I agree. The president is actually an integral part of parliament. Constitutionally, parliament is defined as the president plus the Lok Sabha plus the Rajya Sabha.
A bill does not become a law, an act, until the president signs it.
And this brings us to the most dramatic part of the job, the real source of power, Section 4, the veto powers.
This is Article 111. A bill gets passed by both houses. It lands on the president's desk. What are the options?
There are 3 options. 1, give assent. He signs it. It becomes law. Simple. Done.
Okay.
2, withhold assent. This is what's known as the absolute veto. The bill just dies. It's over.
And 3?
3, return the bill for reconsideration. This is the suspensive veto.
Okay, let's look at that absolute veto first. Can the president just kill any bill he disagrees with personally?
In theory, yes. But in practice, that's not really how it's used. The absolute veto is almost always exercised on the advice of the government itself.
Wait, hold on. Why would the government advise the president to kill their own bill that they just passed?
It usually happens when the government that passed the bill is no longer in power.
Oh.
So let's look at a historical case. 1954, the PPSU Appropriation Bill. PPSU was a state back then. Parliament passed a money bill for it, but the session ended. By the time it reached President Rajendra Prasad for his signature, the president's rule in that state had been revoked. The situation on the ground had changed.
So the bill was no longer relevant.
It was pointless. So the government advised him to withhold assent, and he did. Another famous case was in 1991, President Venkataraman. The outgoing government passed a bill regarding MP salaries on the very last day before the House dissolved.
A little parting gift for themselves.
Exactly. But they forgot to get the president's prior recommendation, which is mandatory for any money bill. It was procedurally flawed. So when the new government came in, they told President Venkataraman, don't sign that. It was passed improperly. He withheld assent.
So the absolute veto is mostly for, like, constitutional cleanup. What about the suspensive veto, sending it back for reconsideration?
Now, this is where the president can actually push back against the government of the day. He can return a bill, unless it's a money bill, and essentially say, I have doubts about this. I think this might be unconstitutional, or I think this is just bad policy. Think again.
But the suspensive part of the name implies it's temporary.
It is. If Parliament takes that bill, passes it again, either with or without the president's suggested amendments,
Mm.
and sends it back to the president a second time, he must sign it. He has no choice.
So he can force them to think twice, but he can't actually stop them if they're determined.
Precisely. It's a powerful speed bump, but it's not a roadblock.
Unless he uses the third option, the one that isn't explicitly written down as a power but exists in the silence of the Constitution, the famous pocket veto.
Ah, yes. The incredible power of doing absolutely nothing.
Explain this loophole. It seems almost too simple.
It is simple. While Article 111 says the president shall declare his assent or return the bill for reconsideration. But, and this is the entire loophole, it does not put a time limit on when he has to do it.
So in the U.S., the president has, 10 days? If he doesn't sign it by then, it's automatically vetoed.
Correct. In India, the Constitution is silent. The president can sit on the file for a week, a month, a year, or theoretically, forever. This is why the legal scholars love to say the pocket of the Indian president is bigger than that of the American president.
And we have a legendary story about this, don't we? The Zail Singh versus Rajiv Gandhi showdown.
This is the classic textbook example of the pocket veto in action. The year was 1986. Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister with a historic massive majority over 400 seats in the Lok Sabha.
An unstoppable force.
Seemingly. And his government passed the Indian Post Office Amendment Bill.
What was so controversial about a post office bill?
It was incredibly controversial. It gave the government sweeping powers to intercept any personal mail. The press and civil liberties groups called it a draconian attack on privacy and freedom of speech.
And Zail Singh, the president at the time, he wasn't exactly best friends with Rajiv Gandhi at this point in their relationship.
Oh, their relationship was toxic. It had completely broken down. And Zail Singh knew that if he used the suspensive veto, if he sent the bill back, Rajiv Gandhi would just use his massive majority to ram it through Parliament again instantly.
And Zail Singh would be humiliated and forced to sign it anyway.
He'd look weak and defeated. So he didn't send it back.
He did nothing.
He did absolutely nothing. He just kept the file on his desk. He exercised the pocket veto. He let the bill just sit there, gathering dust, until his entire presidential term ended.
And then what happened to the bill?
Well, the next president, R. Venkataraman, came into office. And by then, 1989 had rolled around, the political winds had changed, a new government under VP Singh was in power, and they didn't want the controversial bill anymore, so it was quietly dropped.
So Zail Singh single-handedly killed a bill passed by the strongest government in Indian history simply by refusing to pick up a pen.
That's it. It was a masterclass in constitutional passive resistance.
But the president doesn't just block laws. Sometimes he actually makes them. This takes us to Section 5, Ordinances, Article 123.
This is a very powerful and, frankly, very controversial tool. It allows the president, on the advice of the cabinet, to promulgate ordinances when Parliament is not in session.
You called it lawmaking on the fly.
Essentially, yes. The Constitution makers were practical. They knew that Parliament only meets for a few months every year. If a war breaks out, or a pandemic hits, or there's a sudden financial crisis when Parliament is on recess, the government needs the power to act immediately.
So an ordinance has the same power as a law passed by Parliament.
It has the full force and effect of an act of Parliament, but it's temporary.
It has an expiry date, right?
It does. It must be laid before both houses of Parliament when they reassemble. It automatically expires 6 weeks after the reassembly of Parliament, unless it's proved by them before that.
So what's the maximum life of an ordinance without approval?
Well, the maximum gap allowed between two parliamentary sessions is 6 months. So you have 6 months of recess plus the 6 weeks after they come back. So about 7.5 months in total.
But governments must love this power. I mean, it lets them completely bypass parliamentary debate and scrutiny.
They do love it. It's supposed to be reserved for unforeseen and urgent matters. But often, governments use it to pass tricky or controversial laws when the opposition isn't around to make a fuss.
Can you challenge this in court? Can you say, this wasn't really an emergency?
Yes, you can. The Supreme Court in the Cooper case, back in 1970, ruled that the president's satisfaction regarding the urgency of the matter can be questioned in court if it is mala fide, that is, done in bad faith.
For example?
For example, you can't just prorogue or end the session of a House deliberately just so you can pass an ordinance and avoid a debate. That would be bad faith.
But the craziest story of ordinance abuse has to be the Ordinance Raj in Bihar, the D.C. Wadhwa case.
Oh, this case is unbelievable. It's a shocking story. In the state of Bihar, between 1967 and 1981, the governor, who has similar ordinance powers at the state level, promulgated 256 ordinances.
256.
But here's the trick. They almost never brought them before the state legislature for approval.
So they would just let them expire after 7.5 months?
No. That's the genius of it. Just before an ordinance was about to expire, they would re-promulgate the exact same ordinance again and again and again. They kept some of these temporary laws alive for up to 14 years.
That is just cheating. That is completely bypassing democracy.
The Supreme Court agreed. In 1987, the D.C. Wadhwa judgment came down like a ton of bricks. The court called this practice a constitutional fraud. They ruled that you cannot use an emergency power as a substitute for the normal legislative process.
It really highlights how important the judiciary is in acting as a check on these executive powers.
Absolutely vital.
Okay, let's move to Section 6, a power that literally deals with life and death, the pardoning power, Article 72.
This is the power of executive clemency. It exists as a final safety valve because the legal system, being a human system, can make mistakes. Or sometimes the strict application of the law in a particular case can be just too harsh and unjust.
And to be clear, this is not a court of appeal, right? The president doesn't re-examine all the evidence and retry the case.
No, not at all. He isn't acting as a super judge. He is looking at factors the court might not be able to consider, things like family distress, the public good, the convict's health. And he acts on the advice of the Union Home Ministry.
The article uses 5 specific words here. Pardon, commutation, remission, respite, and reprieve. Can we quickly distinguish them?
Sure. A pardon is the full wipe. It's the most powerful one. It completely removes both the sentence and the conviction. It's like the crime never happened. You are an innocent citizen again.
Okay. Commutation.
Commutation is substituting the form of punishment for a lighter one. The classic example is commuting a death penalty to life imprisonment.
Got it. Remission.
Remission reduces the amount of the sentence without changing its character. So 10 years of rigorous imprisonment might become 7 years of rigorous imprisonment. The punishment is the same, just shorter.
Okay. Respite.
Respite is about awarding a lesser sentence due to some special fact or condition. The most common examples are the pregnancy of a female offender or a convict with a severe disability.
And finally, reprieve.
Reprieve is a temporary stay of execution, usually for a death sentence, to give the convict time to seek a pardon or commutation from the president. It's a pause button.
Now, governors also have a pardoning power under Article 161, but there is a huge difference when it comes to the death penalty.
The massive critical difference. A governor can suspend, remit, or commute a death sentence, but only the president of India can grant a pardon for a death sentence.
So if you're on death row and you want to be completely absolved of the crime, only the president can help you.
Only the president. Also, the president's power extends to sentences given by court-martials or military courts. The governor has no power there at all.
Is this power absolute, or can the courts review a pardon decision?
For a long, long time, it was thought to be an absolute sovereign power. But the Supreme Court's view has evolved. They now say that while they won't judge the merits of the president's decision, they will intervene if the decision is found to be arbitrary, irrational, discriminatory, or made in bad faith.
So you can't just pardon someone because they're from your political party.
Exactly. There has to be some application of mind.
So we have covered the election, the impeachment, the vetoes, the ordinances, and the pardons. Incredible toolkit. Now we need to answer the big question we started with in Section 7, the constitutional position. Is the president a rubber stamp or a guardian?
And this brings us right back to the history of the Constitution itself. When they were writing it, Dr. Ambedkar was very clear. He said the president is a ceremonial device or a seal. He explicitly compared him to the King of England.
Head of state, not head of government.
Precisely. All pomp, no real power. But as you can imagine, the politicians didn't like leaving it that vague.
No, they always want things in writing.
Especially Indira Gandhi. During the emergency in the 1970s, she passed the infamous 42nd Amendment in 1976. It directly changed Article 74. It added a line that explicitly said the president shall act in accordance with the advice of the Council of Ministers.
That was the rubber stamp amendment. It legally bound the president to do whatever the prime minister told him to do. No ambiguity.
It did. It removed all doubt. But then, after the emergency was lifted, the Janata Party government came to power. They passed the 44th Amendment in 1978. They couldn't fully undo what Indira Gandhi had done, but they added a crucial proviso.
What was that?
They said the president can return the advice once for reconsideration.
There's that word again, once. The power of asking, are you really sure you want to do this?
And that little proviso is what saves the office from being a total and complete rubber stamp. It's what allows the president to be a conscience keeper for the nation.
And we have a real hero for this role, President K.R. Narayanan.
K.R. Narayanan, who served in the late 90s, he really defined what a working president could be. In October 1997, the I.K. Gujral cabinet, a shaky coalition government, recommended imposing president's rule in Uttar Pradesh. It was a messy political situation, and they wanted to dismiss the BJP government there.
The cabinet said dismiss them. What did President Narayanan do?
He didn't just sign. He sat down, he studied the Constitution, he looked at the Bombay judgment, a landmark Supreme Court case about federalism and the misuse of president's rule, and he sent the file back. He wrote a note saying, "I don't believe this is constitutionally sound. Please reconsider your advice."
And what did the cabinet do?
They knew they were on shaky legal ground. They did not want to have a public fight with the respected president over it.
Yeah.
So they backed down, they dropped the proposal. The UP government was saved by the president.
And he did it again a year later in Bihar, didn't he?
Yes. In 1998, he returned a recommendation to impose president's rule in Bihar. Now, in that case, the situation on the ground worsened, and the cabinet sent the recommendation back to him a few months later in 1999.
And because they sent it back, under the 44th Amendment.
He had to sign it the second time. He was bound by the advice, but he had proved his point. The president acts as a constitutional filter. He forces the government to be absolutely sure and to justify its actions, at least to him.
So he isn't a robot. He applies his mind.
Exactly. But there is one very specific area where the president acts completely on his own without any advice. We call it situational discretion.
And when does this happen?
It happens when the normal political system breaks down. The classic example is a hung parliament. The election results come out, and no single party or pre-poll alliance has a clear majority.
So there is no prime minister to advise the president because the old one has resigned and the new one hasn't been chosen yet.
Exactly. The president is on his own. He has to look at the numbers, talk to the various party leaders, and use his own wisdom and judgment to appoint a prime minister who he thinks can form a stable government and prove their majority on the floor of the House.
In that singular moment, the president is the most powerful person in the country.
He is the kingmaker, or the queenmaker. We saw this play out repeatedly during the coalition era of the 1990s. The president's discretion was what shaped the formation of multiple governments.
And he also has discretion if a government loses a vote of no confidence but refuses to resign.
Yes. In that case, he can dismiss them. Or another example. If a prime minister loses his majority and asks the president to dissolve the House and call for new elections, the president can say, "No, I don't think so. I think the opposition might be able to form a new government. I won't dissolve the House just yet."
So let's wrap this entire deep dive up. We started with the central question: symbol, rubber stamp, or guardian?
And the answer, after looking at all of this, has to be, it depends.
That's the classic expert answer, isn't it?
But it's true. In normal times, with a strong, stable majority government, the president is largely a symbol. They represent the dignity and continuity of the nation. If the person holding the office is weak or overly passive, they can easily become a rubber stamp. The system allows for that. But the Constitution, through the wording of the oath, the power of the pocket veto, and that crucial 44th Amendment, empowers them to be a guardian.
I feel like the office is designed to be a constitutional bumper.
That is the perfect image. A car bumper doesn't drive the car. It doesn't steer it or power it. But when there is a collision, a crisis, it's designed to absorb the shock.
So the Constitution doesn't shatter.
Exactly. The president absorbs the political shock so the delicate machinery of the state doesn't break down.
That is a really powerful thought. The president is there to protect the machinery of the state from the very politicians who are running it.
Precisely. It's the ultimate check and balance.
Before we sign off, here's a final provocative thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. We talked about the pocket veto and the fact that it has no time limit. In our modern era of instant communication and 24-hour news cycles, does that still make sense? Should the president be forced to decide on a bill within a set time, maybe like the 10 days they have in the U.S.? Or is that infinite pause button the only real weapon a president has against a hasty, dangerous law passed by a brute majority?
It's a real double-edged sword. That ambiguity can be a shield against tyranny, or it can become a tool for obstruction. It's certainly worth thinking about.
If you enjoyed unpacking the Indian Constitution with us, diving into the crazy math of the Electoral College, and hearing about the legends like Zail Singh and K.R. Narayanan, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel Deep Dive Daily.
We have so many more articles, amendments, and historical cases to explore together.
Thanks for listening. We will see you on the next Deep Dive.